Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get to this podcast off the ground, I had so many questions. How do I record an episode? Where do I find my background music? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? Where do I find the advertisers? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing and monetizing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and 100% ridiculously easy to use. So, if you want to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Happening now! The popular show in BBC will get an HBO treatment, but hopefully HBO will treat it fairly more than Game of Thrones got. A Star Trek actor from J.J. Abrams' Star Trek will be playing the world's famous news anchor that set place during the JFK assassination. And of course, we're getting, speaking of Star Trek, we are also gonna get a new book. Although, I will say, of course, but unfortunately we're gonna start off with the tragic news, not related to Geek, but, regarding to the real world. Okay, we're going to start off with some sad news. The death toll was 20 in Texas, while 9 have perished in El Paso Saturday. The Daytona shooting happened at of course, Sunday, which happened on Sunday, 13 hours after the shooting in El Paso. But now, the death toll has been risen to 21. So the total deaths of the weekend shooting was 30. And I thought I would never get this news again. After the shooting at the Garlic Festival last weekend. Happening last weekend before the last 2 days had happened again. Well, we got one shooter in custody in El Paso, showing no remorse for the victims. Although the other one, who killed 9 people, and one of them being his sister, was gunned down by the police. And yes, even though Bigger Bird, we got like 14 injuries in Daytona. While I can't I can't find those. While we don't have the injury numbers, but though, I do want to pay respects to the victims of the shooting. With 9 of them at Dayton. Well, there's 4 victims in their 30s, 4 victims in their 20s, and only 1 victim in his late 50s. And those were the mass shooting victims at Dayton who were perished. And like I say, I do want to pay respects to the victims of the weekend shooting, the shootings that took place at the weekend. And although we do have a casualty update regarding to the, regardless of this shooting, because after what happened is, of course, with out of the 21 victims that were gunned down at El Paso at the Walmart parking lot, 7 of them were citizens of the Latinos. Were 7 Latinos from Mexico. Were the citizens from Mexico. But yes, everybody's going to be. The news stations are going to be really busy with those after these heinous violence over the weekend. And it includes the previous Sunday before last Sunday. Because that's going to put a lot of pressure on lawmakers. But even though I do Geek News often at times, but it's really important for me to do the news involving the real world issues. Like I did the debut of Geek News with the burning at, of course, in Japan, in a Japan anime studio. It's like I say, it's really important for me to do this, to cover this in a real serious manner first. This is not me being funny or anything. That's only when I do Marvel Tuesday and the Wednesday Wagons and the randomizer regarding the geek. But in Geek News, I do things really, really seriously. And I gotta act serious at sometimes. And yes, and I have to do real world issues first before starting this episode. Okay? Okay. First, I want to start off with those news in Geek regarding to one of the sources. And yes, we already have one of those. Hold on. Okay, first off, we are going to get Chris Pines, who is famous for Captain Kirk. from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. And I know you guys are not a fan of his Star Trek, like you're not a fan of his Star Wars, but I can respect that, however. And he's going to be playing the iconic news anchor, the late great Walter Cronkite. And yes, Walter Cronkite, the news anchor who, of course, was most iconic for breaking the news regarding two, that set place, of course, had done the news that just shook the nation during, about course, with John F. Kennedy. The assassination of John F. Kennedy, the 36th president, who was at Dallas at that time. And then his vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, swore in as president. And yes, he will be playing the film. Name of the film is Newsflash. And this film will take place in November 22nd, 1963. The date where the world was in mourning over JFK's assassination. And that sources came from Deadline. But although there is no release date for this, and that's really best move. Newsflash. But even so, no release date is the right move. It's best to plan a release date later, not too soon. Although I will keep you updated regarding to Chris Pines in Newsflash. That's Walter Cronkite. And yes, and that legendary news anchor, of course, had passed away in 2009. And that's what we're here for. We are here to cover everything geek. Even if it involves them playing the news anchor. Although we do have breaking news. Doctor Who, the longest running BBC series, will stream exclusively on HBO Max. Also finding a home there, NBC's The Office, Friends, and Luthor. HBO Max will be available next year. Well, that is, of course, Disney Plus, but it says seasons of the revived series, but in the British term, we call it series. And yes, and I apologize for the breaking news. For this breaking news music, of course, we have, is BBC, a BBC show, while we have the BBC music. While we have BBC music, and of course, we also keep up with everything. Including Doctor Who. But But I'm not trying to correct geeks and gamers, but it's called Series 1 through 11. Which is, of course, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Peter Capaldi. Or, unless you're referring to, of course, the first 3 Doctors, including Pete Turtwig, who has a son who is, of course, Alfred from Gotham, who was, of course, Alfred from Gotham, Sean Pertwee. And then you got Tom Baker. Unless that's who you're referring to. The first 3 Doctors. The first 3. Or the first 4 Doctors. That's the seasons 1 through 11. But if you're referring to Eccleston, Capaldi, Smith, and Tennant, that's the series. That's called series. But, you know, that's what I'm saying, of course. You need to keep up with the British. Now, keeping up with the Brits. Alright, the next one we're going to is novels. In this news, we got, of course, ever watched Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch? And yes, from the director of James Bond's Skyfall, Sam Mendes, we'll have 1917, which takes place in World War I, with Universal, DreamWorks, and New Republic. And no, I'm not talking about the New Republic from Star Wars, but it's going to star Doctor Strange's Benedict Cumberbatch, Robert Madden of the upcoming Eternals film, and Mark Strong, who was the villain in Shazam. The release date for this film is December 25th. 2019, which is, of course, Christmas Day. Do not avert your eyes, everyone, or adjust your eyes. You are reading this right. You are reading this right. And we are, of course, getting 2 MCU actors and a DCU actor in this film. Which everyone says that this looks like Dunkirk. Well, we already know that Dunkirk is a World War I film. Or correct me if I'm wrong. And yes, everyone, correct me if I'm wrong about Dunkirk. If it didn't take place in World War I, instead took place at World War II. But it's directed by the Dark Knight trilogy's Christopher Nolan. And the other non-geek he does is that one and Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is, of course, his second PG-13 film starring. Which is, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio's second PG-13 film to appear in. First was Aviator. Yeah, before he was in The Great Gatsby. Alright, now we are going to, of course, go to Star Trek. of course, we have some news regarding to Star Trek, however, that we are going to get a book based on the trilogy, which was produced by J.J. Abrams. The two of them were directed by J.J. Abrams, but the last one, due to its time with Disney, with Star Wars, is as a book. We already have several books of Star Trek, which are indeed canon, which are of course canon by Paramount, with the franchise doing so well. But yet we're getting a Picard return, and we already have Discovery, and yet we have two upcoming animated shows. One adult coming to CBS All Access with Dan Harmon, with one of the people behind Rick and Morty. And we're getting a kids show of Star Trek for Nickelodeon, which is also owned by Viacom. But, however, the books, I'm more of the books of Star Wars and of course movies of Star Wars. But anything with Picard, count me in. But if any shows of Star Trek, count me in. Animated, Next Generation, anything Next Generation. But I am looking forward to Picard. But the books, not so much, to be frankly honest with ya. Alright guys, that's gonna do about it for Geek News. I'm Megaverse46, and I will see you guys next time.